Welcome to the Fiscally Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gardner, co-founder and CEO of Hiline. Today, we're going to continue on with our nonprofit series. We have Maureen Flynn from Changing Our World. Maureen's an old friend, and she's got a ton of cool perspectives on the corporate giving world, both working with very large corporations and nonprofits on their corporate sponsor strategy. I look forward to jumping into it. And Maureen, welcome to the show. Okay. Maureen, welcome to the Fiscally Awesome Podcast. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Maureen and I actually went to college. We actually both live in Syracuse, and we frequently cross paths in all the airports because we both got to connect everywhere we go because you can't get a direct flight to anywhere coming out of Syracuse, unfortunately. But Maureen is the vice president of Changing Our World. And I think maybe just to give us a little bit of context, Maureen, tell us a bit about yourself, tell us about Changing the World and your role there.
Yeah, great. So Changing Our World is a social impact consulting firm. What that means is that we work with both nonprofit organizations around fundraising strategy, and then we also have a corporate practice that works with companies to design and implement their social impact programs. So everything from the charitable contributions they make, how to leverage their employee expertise, and thinking about the other assets that they might have to support communities or other kind of key social issues that are important to their business. So I have been with Changing Our World for 17 years.
Wow.
A long time.
Wow.
Flew by. And before that, I worked in-house at two different companies in corporate responsibility roles. And I was introduced to this world of fundraising and philanthropy back at our alma mater, SUNY Oswego, where I worked in the development office and learned a lot about fundraising there.
So is this, okay, I don't know this because we never really talked a ton about career aspiration because we were always having fun. So is this like the plan when you got out of college, you wanted to go in? No.
This was not the plan. So I majored in PR and communications, minored in journalism. The only thing I wanted to do was work in PR. I did do that briefly and I hated it. It crushed me because that was actually my career plan was move to New York City, work for a big agency. But I did have a nonprofit client during my time working in PR. And it was the one thing that felt super meaningful to me. It was the thing that made me wake up and feel like I was doing something important and meaningful and not just writing press releases for a restaurant or a random product or trying to get ad space for free, which is what we did back then. So I was lost and was like, what am I going to do? And I started looking for fundraising roles. And I actually stumbled across this position at Toshiba working for their corporate foundation, which I didn't even realize was a job that you could have working with a company to help give away their money, but do so in a way that was really impactful and aligned with kind of areas that were core to their business. Not planned, totally accidental, but here I am.
Here you are.
20 years later.
So our whole thing on the podcast is trying to help founders and operators and executive directors just be more fiscally awesome. We've been doing a series focusing on nonprofits, and I think your role in which you do is super relevant because you get the perspective of, I get to work with companies who are trying to figure out how to contribute and further their contributions to their communities, mission-based investments in the right organizations. And then you get to work with nonprofits to help them develop fundraising strategies. So you get to see what everybody cares about.
Exactly.
So this is perfect. Okay. So maybe just we can kick it off with a broad question, right? So what's happening today in the philanthropic landscape that nonprofit leaders absolutely need to understand? What are you hearing from both sides?
Yeah, I think that competition for philanthropic resources right now is super fierce when it comes to companies and foundations and individual donors. Like, they have a lot of choices. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations out there. So they're being more selective. So I think if you're a nonprofit leader right now and you're not thinking about your value prop and your own competitive advantage as an organization and how you differentiate from the competition, even though you're all doing great work, it's just really articulating more than just we do good work. It's why should someone invest in your mission and your organization? So I think it really comes down to that value prop.
Yeah, and I think I feel like it's been done the same way for a long time. I don't think we have lived through a lot of economic turmoil. Like it's been since we got out of college, it's just been good all the time. So it's not that when the stock market crashed, like that wasn't disruptive. We were probably a little too young to really understand the full impact of it because we were just cutting our teeth in our careers. But I think right now this is uncharted waters. And I think nonprofits are under a lot of pressure. Funding is at risk for political reasons in some cases. And also companies are getting squeezed with profits because the economy's, some say it's good, some say it's bad. Basically, nobody knows. So everybody, I think, is just holding the purse strings a little tighter. But historically, a lot of nonprofits that we work with, they've always counted on the same donors, and they've always counted on relationships. We're at this interesting inflection point where we got to rethink the whole thing, which I think is your point. People are going to start asking you what makes you different,
Right.
What is unique about your organization.
Definitely.
So on the nonprofit side, like, what are some of the challenges that you're hearing from leaders in nonprofits? What are they feeling right now, living through this?
A lot, especially those that are, to your point, facing budget cuts or having to think about this work differently. But I think one of the biggest challenges to growth right now isn't even necessarily about donors. It's actually the internal challenges that fundraisers are facing. There's a lot of misalignment around expectations of your leadership, your board, the development team. Everyone wants growth, but they're not always working from the same baseline. And so I think starting with a really clear understanding of where the fundraising program actually stands today and realistically where you want to move it forward, it's that lack of understanding that can be a real frustration and kind of set unrealistic expectations around growth and fundraising. So the organizations that do a really good job of breaking through are those that make sure everyone's aligned and are having that transparent conversation about the plan to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. So the nonprofits we work with tend to be, say, in the range of like $1.5 million to $5 million in operating budget. Mm-hmm. We have some that are more, but for specifically related to those that we've talked about on this podcast before, because I think everything's been steady state for a long time.
Yeah.
And you end up, I think it's more common than not that like you have a couple really engaged board members, then you have a lot of disengaged board members who are there for different reasons. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they haven't, because things aren't changing, you're just playing a role. You haven't really had to rethink the strategy, and it's just been what it is. And now I think everything's getting shaken up, and people probably have questions, and maybe they didn't fully understand it before. Everybody's trying to get caught up. So with changing the world, are you working with small, large, everybody? Like, what's your typical nonprofit?
Yeah, it's definitely a mix. I would say we work with organizations that are small and local, and maybe they're not thinking about a big capital campaign. They need some help organizing and getting everyone in a room and thinking about their strategic plan. For larger organizations, it may be more focused on a growth strategy. We're a $10 million organization. We want to be 50. How do we do that? And then organizations of all sizes, I think when they are thinking about we need a new building or there's a real capital need, we will work with organizations that are trying to raise $1 million to upwards of billions of dollars and everything in between.
Are you connecting corporate partners and nonprofits too? Or just advising them in silos?
So our work is, we're two distinct teams. And so what we don't promise is that we're going to go match our clients. But because we understand the corporate side, we will leverage the expertise of members of our corporate team to advise on the nonprofit side to help get that value prop for companies really sharp, to really understand the right point of entry in a company. And maybe it is the philanthropic dollars, but maybe it's marketing dollars or some other HR training program, or there's a lot of just different, I think, business goals that nonprofits can align to and help companies achieve. So we have made matches where they make sense, where we have a corporate client that's really aligned to a nonprofit's mission.
Yep, that makes sense. In terms of philanthropy, it sounds like on the nonprofit side, like this is a big moment to realign, reset our strategy, rethink how are we going to subsidize the thing that we do that's important to our community. On the corporate side, what are the trends you're seeing there? Like, what are they looking for? How are you approaching it differently right now? More investment, less investment?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. We are seeing steady numbers. We're having budget cut. I think that definitely companies continue to be more strategic and focused with their dollars. So what are the causes that are important in our key communities? Do they align to our business? Do we have other assets that can move the needle? And so I think if you're a nonprofit, really thinking about, do we align with the goals and industry or communities served, really getting sharp on that alignment, there's more of a chance of partnership.
Are you seeing some of the causes that companies want to invest behind change right now, or are they largely, have they been the same since the beginning of time?
Mean, they're mostly the same. I think we see during economic downturn, you see a lot of support for basic human needs. We see an uptick in requests from organizations in the hunger and homelessness space.
Yeah.
But I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that a company is going to deviate from a strategy that we're a financial services company and we're going really deep on financial inclusion and financial literacy. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to open the aperture to all of these other causes. So again, if there's a way to fit within that, and you may not be a financial literacy organization, but if there's a unique way for you to align and achieve some of the goals that the company may have, it may be a unique offering.
Like when nonprofits, they think about corporate sponsorship, what are the things that they got to make sure that are in their pitch?
Again, like tailoring and making sure all of the ask is aligned. I think the thing that we see too often are just these cookie cutter, here are different tiers of sponsorship. Companies are looking for, well, how can this be mutually beneficial? And so really understanding whether if visibility is really important, if finding ways to engage their employees are really important, and making sure those benefits are baked into the pitch or the sponsorship that you're asking for, you're just going to have a better shot.
Yep.
Big or small.
I think it's easier to do market research now than it's ever been to figure that out too. So maybe we can shift to some practical strategies for nonprofit leaders right now as they think about going into these new uncharted waters. So when you think about strengthening their major gift program, where should they start? Is it where you said you got to make sure that whatever you need aligns more clearly with the organizations you're requesting the funding from? Is that like the stepping stone? Like make sure it's clear. It's like go-to-market strategy for a business. Got to have ICP fit.
100%. Not overcomplicating the story. I think with major gifts specifically, definitely that case, why should a donor support you is important, but more basically, where to even start, it's relationships. It is the first question. It's what are the relationships we already hold as an organization? What relationships do our board and staff have? And then within those, like, where are there relationships we want to get to? And which ones can be truly transformative? Where is there big pockets of wealth that we want to get our case for support in front of those individuals? So it really comes down to those connections and how to deepen those relationships. It seems so basic, but that is the foundation.
When you work with more hyper-local organizations, do you find yourself advising them to look outside of the region you've always looked to go find larger donors who are interested in what you're doing and supporting other local communities?
I think it's a multi-pronged approach. Do they have a tie to your community in some way? Did they go to school there? Is there some other reason? If they're a national funder, they're notoriously known for making investments in different communities. Absolutely. But if it's random, probably not where you want to spend your time and resources. When I first started in this work in Oswego, I was a student caller.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've gotten the call.
I still get them.
Make a donation. And you'd get a stack of alumni, and I would go through them and look at them. Where are they from? What activities were they in? Where they live in college? Because the more points of connection I had to them, the easier it was to get them bought in on what I was selling, which was that state schools don't get a lot of funding and we need your support. And so I think that relationship building and really that connectivity piece is so important, particularly for smaller local organizations.
Yep. So you talk about building a prospect list pretty much, right? So when you go into a nonprofit and you help them build a strategy, do you have a playbook you guys run for this? Like, here's how you build a prospect list. Here's how you go about doing market research. Is that part of what you guys do?
Totally, but it's so basic in that I think so many organizations just treat their prospects the same instead of segmenting who are our hot, medium, and cold prospects, and what are we going to do to take those cold folks and make them medium and make those medium folks warm. And that's, again, relationship building, And so those organizations that are constantly assessing where their prospects are in the pipeline, it's like a sales strategy,
CRM.
of course.
Yeah.
Putting real specific strategies in place to move them forward rather than treating them all the same. That's, I think, real basic how to organize your prospect list.
Yeah. So we're probably getting close to 70 or 80 nonprofits at this point, realistically, that we're working with. And I would say most of them, for the most part, and this is actually true for-profit businesses in terms of like, how well do you manage your CRM?
Yeah.
Generally, it's not well.
The
The
data's
data is
bad.
not good. The data's bad. It's not being used to make it easier because you can segment your data a lot of different ways. You can build prospect lists to a lot of more modern strategies using technology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of like this donor acquisition cost that I don't think oftentimes is really top of mind. Because if you want 1,000 new donors, it's going to cost you money. It's not just going to happen. We find ourselves constantly wondering, man, like nobody's helping them figure this out. It's really a data problem. We constantly are like, if no one else is going to solve the problem of this, eventually something we're going to have to lean into to help them at least get their data in a place where we can help them do this better. But the data is always a problem. Very often stuff's getting written down on paper and napkins and it doesn't go in the system and you're not using it to send thank yous and all the things that they're built to be able to do.
And for a lot of organizations, their ability to grow often exists within their existing donor universe. But if your donor file is a mess, you can't leverage it smartly. And you do, then you're thinking about, oh, I got to go out and find new donors, when in reality, you may be sitting on something really valuable in terms of those that are already supporting you and have the ability to grow with you.
And storytelling is important too, right? So if you have a good quality set of prospects in your database, you segment it the right way, you can constantly be using marketing strategies to push content that are tailored to their, specific donors' interests all the time, which I actually don't see really anybody doing that right now, the way that you would see a marketing team run.
Totally.
You work with organizations that you think do that well yet, or is it still a newer thing?
I think some of the bigger organizations, there's some organizations like Charity Water that has branding and storytelling so down to a science. They are thinking themselves as marketing their purpose. I think the problem is that we see a lot of organizations just talk about themselves, their mission, their programs. And when it comes to storytelling and figuring out how to be really compelling to major donors, it's that human impact side of your mission, telling those really specific stories, those like testimonial, powerful stories, than just telling the program name or description. Like, that's how you get folks to care about the work that you're doing and bring it to them in a really human way. And I think too many organizations struggle with just talking about the bigger, broader impact of their work rather than telling some really compelling, pull at your heartstrings stories.
You need like a pitch deck.
Yeah.
It's like if you're raising money for a startup and you want to get people to invest in you, it's really no different.
If you move people, they will support you. Yeah, it's the same thing.
I think everybody understands that, right? Do they need help on the narrative? They need help on a process? They need like a template. What helps them be able to tell the story the right way?
Yeah, I think twofold. If you're asking for a significant gift, it's what is the transformational way this gift is going to impact our organization? And that may be some really compelling stories about the people that are going to be served. It may be about the growth strategy, but it's really important to understand the donor and what their motivation is so that the story and the narrative that you're sharing aligns with what's going to get them to write that check. So that is an extra layer of work, but I think it goes back to that relationship building and understanding your donors and making sure that you're putting that effort in for those major potential investments to just unlock those major gifts.
Once you get in the door, so we'll go back, if you put your corporate hat on now, right? Like nonprofit does the work, they pitch, they get in the door. How do you establish yourself now as a partner of choice in the nonprofit? What do you got to do? Because I'm assuming it's not a forever commitment.
Yeah, it's that having that partnership approach from the start. And so setting those meetings so that you have a clear understanding on your mutual goals, how you're going to achieve them. I think good partners, depending on the level of investment, but will set a cadence that's appropriate for checking in with their corporate partner. The best nonprofit organizations that a lot of our corporate clients partner with are the ones that are like, we're owning this relationship with you. We want your input along the way, but it is mutually beneficial. They're not scared because the company holds the funds or the resources. They really look at it as a partnership. So I think that if, as a nonprofit, you're going in there with that mindset, those are the partners that stay around. And I think if you're constantly coming back with new ideas or ways of partnering, that's how you can grow a one-time, what may start as a more transactional relationship into perhaps a real multi-pronged, multi-year partnership, and asking them, are there ways your employees want to get engaged? Are there particular skills that your employee base has that perhaps we could leverage from a pro bono perspective? Are there particular visibility opportunities you're interested in? And just finding those various points of entry to grow the partnership, I think is super key to staying around.
Well, do they get excited if you start, because you always have like reporting requirements
Yeah.
most of the time, but like when you start to inject the things like case studies and interviews and really giving them compelling, well done, designed, thought out content, is that
totally? I mean,
gets their
that's
attention, right?
Turnkey content like that you're sharing that's tailored to their investment that then they can use to go tell this story to their employees or other stakeholders and say, this is what we've done with our money. It's just another way to get employees proud and excited that they work there. And it's also a way for them to understand what investments you're making and why. So I think storytelling is a huge part of that. And on the flip side, any mentions of your partnership externally, whether it's social posts or whatever, companies are always looking for that third party endorsement because it comes across more authentic than if they're out talking about their own investments. When your partners do it for you, that's just an extra bonus.
Yeah. Because some of the corporations, they're big publicly traded companies, I think, right? So yeah, that stuff is useful for their board, it's useful for their shareholders. I'm assuming they repurpose this stuff and they celebrate all the good work they're doing in the communities to make it easy for them. Okay. So nonprofits are going to do two things better today to improve their rate of success in developing existing or new corporate partnerships. What are those two things they got to do better?
It's definitely doing that prospect research and making sure you're not just going into a company that doesn't make any sense for you. So I think it's understanding those points of alignment and where you have a potential relationship or where there's like strong geographic overlap. And then the second piece is the tailored offering, getting that value prop really strong about what your organization brings to the table that perhaps others don't. And sometimes that's looking at your peer organizations and how are they all talking about this work in the same way? And are there opportunities for you to think about it differently? And then having that kind of ask that aligned with what they're looking to support.
Yeah. You talk a lot about alignment. You talk a lot about storytelling. It seems to be the key, right? It's like partnership with a purpose and aligning the goals of the organization looking to support what they care about with the needs of the community and being super crisp on that. That's the thing.
100%. And you wouldn't believe how many requests we see that don't do that. Like, it seems so simple.
What, does it just go in the trash? Like, it hits the desk, goes in the trash.
Like, thanks for trying. But I think there is that, oh, this feels very cookie cutter. They didn't take a little bit of extra time to get to know, to think about what we're trying to achieve.
I think it's a lot of it is education and strategic thinking. And just saying, you know what, here's what we care about. Here are the organizations that we think care very much about the thing that we care about, in tailoring our approach to go after them with the right story. Corporate giving is not everything to organizations. There are other sources of funding. There are individual donors, there are grants, there are other places they can source funding to. Corporate giving is obviously very important. And there's a lot of companies out there that I think are interested in giving and supporting. So it sounds easy, but if it really was easy in practice, like everybody would do it. Why isn't it easy? You know what I mean? And all the work you're doing, when you try to understand and dissect, like, why do folks get this wrong? Do you know what the root cause is?
It's definitely resource limitation. A lot of companies are getting hit with tons and tons of requests, and often they're outside of their criteria or guideline. Not all of them are accepting open applications. So you're at their mercy for them to reach out and say, we're looking for a partner or we're interested.
Like, where do you send it? You just like send it to the Carmel? How does it work?
And when I worked at Canon, I got emails and snail mail, it was a while ago, every day, hundreds and hundreds. Alignment's really important, but finding the right point of entry, mapping your relationships. If you know there's a strong alignment with a particular company, how are you going to get to them? And maybe it's not the right person. Maybe it's not the head of giving. Maybe it's somebody from a different department, but can they get you an introduction? That's at least that initial, would love to tell you about our organization and the work we're doing and why we think we can help you achieve some of your social impact goals. Now, again, that sounds easy, but there's a lot of organizations that don't do that.
It's probably resources on both sides then.
Absolutely resources on both sides, because it takes a lot of work to tailor some of these requests. So that's why when you're going after companies, making sure that you're doing that prospect research so you're not wasting time on those that are frankly never going to fund you.
This feels like an initiative that somebody should get behind, is like help subsidize these investments and nonprofits to go out and find the right partners for them. Anybody giving for that cause right now, to your knowledge?
No, not right now. That's
right
my
now.
knowledge.
Okay. So someday, if I ever have a lot of money, I will support that cause.
We do see philanthropists that will invest in nonprofits to go out and get some sort of assistance, whether it's around fundraising strategy or other capacity building for their organization. We do see a lot of that. But yeah, those are generous folks.
Yeah, capacity building is the term that we hear a lot within nonprofit organizations too, constantly trying to figure out how do we build capacity through donations and funding and everything. It's basically to give leverage to the organization to do more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when somebody gets this perfect, right, and they align with what the corporate sponsors care about, with the needs of the community, what does that look like?
When the magic happens, it's like a partnership everybody knows about, right? Like you work for your employer and you have an opportunity to support a partnership yourself because you're either volunteering or there's a work-life giving strategy. Your customers or consumers know about it. And then certainly social impact is being made. Like these dollars are helping to advance the organization and invest in its program and ultimately reach the people that it exists to serve. So when it's all of that buttoned up together, and it's a really great story, but it's one that people are aware of and know about.
And so you just associate with each other from that point on.
Yeah.
Everybody just knows about you. You're attached to the hip, and all your employees on both sides are just behind it. It's just part of the culture of who we are.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think we see a lot of companies that are doing a lot of great work and nobody knows about it.
You get a press release that there's a partnership, and then it never goes beyond that.
And that comes back to communications and strategy. And we're not a communications agency, but we do a lot of communications work because I think one of the biggest challenges is this isn't just about events or moments in time or press release. Like, how do you work with a comms team to say that this work that we do, the fact that we invest in these programs and initiatives is part of our DNA, it's part of our purpose and why we exist as a company. And so that should be embedded into broader comms, not just those communications that are specific to key moments or initiatives. And I think the same is true for nonprofits. So often we see marketing comms over here, fundraising over here, and those groups need to be working so closely together so that the comm is driving fundraising.
Yeah. So you have found your way back into PR, communication.
A little
bit. So I'm just thinking about everything you're saying. I feel like nonprofit organizations need marketing partnership, or at least a little bit of it. I think it would help a lot to just round out the brand, or round out the purpose, the mission, and start doing a lot of the communications and storytelling. That's probably really tough for folks to have enough time to do.
Yeah, it's a job. And, it's not always the one that's the highest on the priority list, but it is an important one. Back to the point earlier, if your partner can help tell that story for you, that's a huge benefit. That's a huge benefit.
That's a good point. Corporate partners have lots of marketing and PR support to put behind it. You just got to make it easy for them to tell the story for you and ask them to, probably too, I suspect.
Yeah.
Make it part of what you want to do as part of your partnership. Super interesting. There's so many common themes from talking to different folks that work in the industry. Like a lot of the themes point back to a lot of the same things. Really interesting after doing this. I think for like the 6th or 7th time we've talked about the nonprofit space.
Yeah.
It's really interesting reflection that I'm having in real time right now. Okay. So how can nonprofits activate the employees at these organizations too? Your snail mail gets on the desk. Somebody says, yes, this is good. How do you get the broader organization excited about it too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the company. Is volunteerism something, or workplace giving something that's a big part of their program? And can you easily just slide right in there? They've got a month of service, and hey, we can be a partner that gives you volunteer opportunities during that month. On the flip side, if you notice that they're not doing anything, and you perhaps can be like a turnkey partner because they just haven't found someone who can help them, that's another way. Perhaps it's like, want to showcase this partnership across our employees. We want to do a giving campaign that employees can participate in. And if you can organize that for a corporate partner, that might be something that's advantageous to them, or they've never thought about it because they didn't want to have to own the lift. So I think it's understanding how they currently engage or don't engage their employees. And some of those more embedded relationships are those things that are beyond just like a one-time volunteer day, although those are super important. But are there ways to tap into skills of the employee base or connect with their personal passions in other ways? So if it's done really well, then employees are certainly like proud to be a part of the company. And then the nonprofit gains expertise.
Yeah. Even like go to the company's LinkedIn and just follow and connect with as many employees in that organization as you possibly can. So they at least see your content and they start to engage with it. And the network effect comes from that is super powerful too.
Oh, totally.
It makes a big difference. Okay. We have some fun with some rapid fire questions to put a bow on this and wrap it up and maybe just end it with some interesting tidbits. Okay. What do you think is the most overhyped buzzword right now in your world?
In my world? And they're whatever I say is probably something I said 75 times.
Okay.
So
that's all right.
Probably strategic or impact. Those are words I think are thrown out a lot, but maybe not correctly. And in my world, some folks will talk about impact in terms of like media impressions, but really what we mean is, no, are we moving the needle on a systemic social issue? So sometimes it's just terminology exchange.
Terminology. Yeah, people love, like, you're throwing out strategy.
Strategy.
Yeah. What did it mean? What is one metric that you wish everybody tracked related to this right now internally? Like you're guiding your North Star, which the number?
I think awareness. I mean, you survey people, you try to understand, is the work that we're doing going unnoticed? And if it is, why? So finding a way, whether it's focus groups with your stakeholders or your employees or survey, to really understand, do they know and do they care what we're doing? And if not, what do we need to do?
If we use the Net Promoter Score survey, do you use something like that, or is it like a different version of measurement that you would use?
Sometimes it's as simple as they've got like a standing culture survey that's going out, and we'll say, can we sneak in a couple questions?
Yeah.
And then if we do that, we can cross-cut the data to say those folks that are aware are also the folks maybe that are more likely to stay with you for 5+ years. Is there a connection or correlation to those who feel pride and morale with those that are aware and engaged?
That makes sense. All right. One partnership outreach line that is going to get somebody's attention. If you were going to open the snail mail and you only could look at it for 5 seconds, what is the thing that gets your attention?
I don't think there's a magic line. And I know I've talked about the alignment, but I think the thing that gets you in the door is that you understand the company's priorities. You mention in a concrete way how you're going to work together. And then you make it really easy for them to see how this is valuable on both sides.
This well-designed one-pager, like it's got to be the thing they care about, the big bold letters at the top. Read me. We care about the same thing. Love that. Okay. How about a book, article, some influencer out there that you would recommend to help you get a little smarter about building a credible program faster?
We put a lot of great thought leadership out. So definitely, I mean, there's a lot of, I know NPR is like a social impact podcast, but I think a lot of the articles, Stanford Social Innovation, the membership organizations that we do a lot of work with is the Association for ACCP, the Association for Corporate Citizenship Professionals. They put out a lot of great content around making the case for this work. And one of the things they do is pull all the data sets and other industry best practices into one succinct document for folks every year, but also promote a lot of, I think, great articles that are out there.
Okay, that's cool. So if this has struck a chord with folks, where can they connect with you? And where can they find out more about changing our world?
Definitely our website, www.juniorworld.com, and our LinkedIn page as well. We're always putting content, thought leadership, successful case stories, back to storytelling. We love to do that on our LinkedIn page. So you can follow us there for more.
Keep doing all the good work over there at Changing the World. I think it's super cool that you work both sides of this. And I just think the perspective that you must have is just really incredible, pretty unique. So I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I have a lot to think about coming out of this too, because you're just like on my brain. But we appreciate the time. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'll see you at the airport soon. Thanks, Maureen. Bye.